the strongest communities, and the happiest families will always be worth having. That's why the bold and the fearless understand that recreating something better takes courage and strength. So together, let's start shaping a better future today.
Manong Fishball ang tawag sa kanya. Everyday siya kung dumating. Kaya parang institusyon na siya dito sa area namin. Minsan, sobrang late na. Andun pa rin si Manong Fishball.
Ginagabi kayo, Manong!
Enrollment eh.
After some time, yung kariton ni Manong Fishball nadagdagan ng may bike.
Hanggang kabilang kalye, nagtitinda na rin kayo, Manong?
Ang notebook.
Sunod na taon, pati menu nadagdagan.
Nax, may squid balls na!
Mahal kasi ang lapis. May kikyo pa dyan.
Bilib na bilib ako kay Manong Fishball. Akalain mong yung maliit niyang kariton, napalaki niya ng ganun? Ang nagagawa nga naman ng pangarap ng isang magulang.
Manong, anong grade na ba yung anak nyo?
Tagal nang tapos sa mga bata. Ako naman ngayon.
Manong Fishball ang tawag sa kanya. Pero sa mga araw na yun, many years ago, higit pa sa fishballs ang binigay niya sa akin. He taught me na walang di natutupad na pangarap sa taong handang magsumikap.
Dami niya na.
Panghapunan.
Pantoga.
Atin ang pangarap. Atin ang pagsisikap. Atin ang mundo. Globe.
A better future is built by the brave, envisioned by brilliant minds, born from the passions of thousands strong. One that isn't without risk, but protected from it. Safe from all the worries and secure for what's to come. Because a better future with the greatest empires, the strongest communities, and the happiest families will always be worth having. That's why the bold and the fearless understand that recreating something better takes courage and strength. So together, let's start shaping a better future today.
Good afternoon, mayors, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to our 18th Livable Cities Lab, brought to you in partnership with the League of Cities of the Philippines and Globe Telecom. This afternoon, we're going to be devoting our session to a very important topic, one that could bring a lot of change in LGU Finance, in the ability to deliver projects, and in the whole landscape, I guess, of how local governments will deliver uh, services and projects to their citizens. We're going to be presenting LGU Finance and the Mandanas Ruling at today's Livable Cities Lab. And as you know, our seminar is designed to equip cities with knowledge and insights for designing better solutions for their communities. Today we have a stellar cast of speakers and experts, starting with Governor Dax Kua of the province of Quirino and the president of the League of Provinces, Mayor Bing Lenardia, uh, the mayor of Bacolod City, and the president of the League of Cities of the Philippines. We have Attorney Al Agra, to speak about the legal mandate behind the Mandanas law, the PPP centers, Eli Ricote, who will speak about PPP projects for LGUs, and banker Ida Tiongson, who's going to speak about uh, finance and project finance and management at the city level. So we look forward to an exciting afternoon, and we're very happy to entertain a lot of questions from our audience. Let me turn you over now to Sui Suarez, our moderator for this afternoon's lab. Sui is one of the co-founders and a core team member of the Livable Cities Challenge Philippines. He's an energy industry professional with 25 years of experience in communications, corporate social responsibility, commercial oil products businesses, and project management while he was at Shell. He retired from Shell and has recently joined as the Vice President for Reputation Management at Aboitiz Power. And Sui is going to serve as our moderator for this afternoon. So, ladies and gentlemen, let's start this program and let's all please welcome Mr. Sui Suarez.
Thank you, Bill, for the kind introductions. And magandang hapon po sa inyong lahat. Welcome everyone to the Livable Cities Philippines webinar on LGU Finance and the Mandanas Ruling. Before we begin, let us review a couple of safety reminders. No? First, let's be aware of our surroundings while the webinar is ongoing so that in case you need to stop due to an emergency, you can do so safely. And second, please always be aware, no, and stay safe and practice social distancing if you are out of your home. Furthermore, this webinar will be recorded and will be made available to you through an email that will be sent with a link to the video recording and also PDFs of the speakers' presentations. No? Also, if you want to see the video, it will be posted in our Livable Cities Facebook page. Second, if you have questions, you can ask these in the Zoom Q&A chat box. And then in the chat box, you may also vote on questions posted by others simply by clicking on the thumbs up icon next to the question. Ayon, some of the questions will be answered directly by our speakers or their staff within the chat box, whereas other questions will be parked for later and we can discuss this in the panel discussion. Third, if you are joining the webinar on Facebook or on Facebook Live, you can put your questions in the comment section ng Facebook. Just put your questions there and we'll pick it up from there. And then finally, at the end of the webinar, we invite you to please fill up our feedback survey because your response will help us improve our Livable Cities webinar series. And you may also get our certificate of participation by answering the corresponding question in the survey. So right now, let me check. We already have 341 people on Zoom in this webinar. So thank you everyone for joining us in this webinar. And in Facebook, I think we have a few more there as well. So thank you again for those who are spending their afternoon with us at the Livable Cities Lab. To get our program going, we'd like to ask a couple of poll questions. No? We'll start with a couple of poll questions. So if we can get, if you'll see, no, a poll question will pop up sa screen nyo. In the pop-up, there's a question there. It says, where are you joining us from? So all you need to do is to click one of those buttons, no? Either Metro Manila, rest of Luzon, Visayas, or Mindanao. So please, no, pa-answer lang, no? Just click on that. This is our Zoom poll question. Okay. And let's see the results. Oh, wow, we have such a nice mix today, no? A third in Metro Manila, another just over a third, rest of Luzon, and then Mindanao, 20%, and Visayas, another 13%. So almost like a one-third split there. So thank you for that. One last question before we begin, no? The second question is, and if you can pop it up now, are you familiar with the Executive Order number 138? So ang sagot, una, yes, no, or a little bit, konti. So if you can just click that. And this will just give us an idea, no, kung ano yung degree or level or antas ng ating pagkakaintindi ng ating Executive Order number 138. Okay, and let us see the results. We have, okay, pop it up. Aha, about half ang nagsasabi na a little bit familiar. And then almost one-fourth na natitira, yes and no. So good. Thank you for answering those poll questions with us. And I think that's a good way to begin our lab, our webinar on this topic. So to begin today's webinar, let me introduce our first speaker. He is Attorney Alberto Agra. So Attorney Al Agra is a law professor and a lecturer on law, on public corporations and local government law in the Ateneo de Manila Law School since 1993. Also at the Pamantasan ng Lungsod ng Manila since the year 2020, and at the University of the Philippines Law School, Diliman, this year in 2021. He's also a law bar reviewer on the public corporations and local government law in the Ateneo de Manila Law School, and is a principal author of a 1,408-page law book for local government units entitled Amicus Imperiorum Locorum, or as it's translated, Friend of Local Governments in its second edition. So to speak on the fiscal autonomy of LGUs, let us welcome to our Livable Cities Lab, Attorney Al Agra. Attorney Al, hello, how are you?
I'm good, Sui, and thank you for the introduction.
Great. So I leave it to you. The stage is yours, sir.
Okay, thank you. And let me start sharing my PowerPoint presentation. So again, good afternoon to everybody. My topic will be the overview topic for this afternoon's forum on fiscal autonomy and what is this national tax allotment brought to you by the Supreme Court under the Mandanas Ruling. Let me start off by saying that our LGUs have been deprived for the past 34 years since the 1987 Constitution up to the current year. And I will tell you why LGUs have been deprived up to this very day. Let me start off with 12 principles. Again, this is the context, this is the overview, the big picture of the discussion of the Mandanas Ruling. Number one, all LGUs, even barangays, and we have cities, municipalities, barangays, and the autonomous regions and provinces, they all enjoy local autonomy, even barangays. Number two, local autonomy consists of two things: administrative autonomy, political autonomy that pertains to the Bangsamoro Autonomous Region in Muslim Mindanao, and the other integral component of local autonomy is important for today's discussion, that would be fiscal autonomy. Unlike the three constitutional commissions, our Supreme Court, and our Ombudsman, fiscal autonomy, like local autonomy, this is a policy enjoyed by local government units under the Constitution, notwithstanding the fact that there is no phrase fiscal autonomy in Article 10 of our Constitution. Therefore, it is an implied constitutional policy, implied from Section 5 of the Constitution, Article 10, pertaining to other sources of revenues. And another important principle would be there is no local autonomy without fiscal autonomy and vice versa. You need funds in order for local government units to perform their mandate. And at the same time, local governments must be given broad latitude in terms of, and that's local autonomy, in terms of how to use their funds. Also important, under a unitary form of government, we are not in a federal form of government because all local government units are subdivisions of one state. Therefore, it is important that there is no national development without local government and vice versa. Sixth principle, not all LGUs would have the same power or would have the same structure. So the totality of powers of a local government unit or a type of a local government unit will their powers or their authorities will largely depend on Congress. Fiscal autonomy, there are two important aspects. One, where you get the money, and two, how will you use the money? So source and utilization. Another important aspect would be local autonomy is under, and fiscal autonomy is under executive supervision and under the control of Congress. Let me cite one principle. Can a national government agency impose a limitation on the powers of local government units absent a law? My answer to that is no, because only Congress can impose limitations on the power of local government units. If the executive branch will impose restrictions when there is none imposed by law, that will amount to control, not just supervision. Another important aspect by which the Mandanas ruling is anchored on is national government, because we're on one unit. National government shares in devolution, which is actually EO 198, delegation and decentralization. Under our laws and even under our constitution, do we have a finite or exclusive list of sources of funds? The answer is no. No? Mahalaga po yung others. LGUs can source revenues even if there is no law which empowers LGUs to raise that particular fund. But while LGUs have broad latitude in terms of their powers, they have local autonomy, hindi po ibig sabihin na ang local autonomy at fiscal autonomy ay walang hangganan. No? Ang local autonomy po at fiscal autonomy ay merong hangganan. These two concepts, these two principles are not unbridled. They are not absolutes. And lastly, of these 12 principles, when in doubt, resolve in favor of fiscal autonomy of local government units. So again, these are the 12 principles, the big picture, the context by which we should perceive or we should operate under project finance, public-private partnership, opportunities and governance, whether BARM, provinces, cities, municipalities, barangays. What are the sources of funds of local government units? There are various ways by which we can classify funds of local government units. The way I will present it to everyone would be dividing it into whether it is provided in the Constitution or merely provided by law. Why is it important to make that distinction? Because if it is given to local government units under the Constitution, then it cannot be taken away by Congress. But if it's only given by Congress, then it can be repealed or even modified. So what are the constitutional sources of funds? One, taxation. We have an inclusive list. Under the 1991 Local Government Code, local governments may even impose taxes not found in any law, for as long as, of course, no other agency is collecting that particular levy. National government do not have a share in the local taxes, but as I will explain shortly, LGUs have a share in national taxes. Once upon a time, prior to the 1991 Local Government Code, government-owned and controlled corporations and government municipalities enjoyed certain tax exemptions, but these exemptions have been withdrawn. Fees and charges compared to taxation, that's for regulatory purposes to cover the cost of regulation. National tax allotment, which we will discuss shortly. Equitable share in the utilization and development of natural resources. Some people call it the national wealth tax. And more importantly, the other sources, which LGUs on their own, in the exercise of local autonomy, could generate. Statutory, local governments can contract loans, they can secure grants, they can float bonds, they can enter into public-private partnership, which is our next topic. And lastly, they can enter into contracts. For those of us who believe on the liberal view of local autonomy, what is the liberal view of local autonomy? Basta walang pagbabawal, kahit walang batas, kung hindi naman pinagbabawal ng batas, pwede. I have two examples on this. One, can a local government unit incorporate a subsidiary? My answer is there is no prohibition and therefore allowed. The other example would be, can a local government securitize its national tax allotment, business tax on real property tax? There is no prohibition. Therefore, to my mind, it is allowed. So here are the questions that I will answer pertaining to the Mandanas ruling. When is the share just? What is the just share part of the income? What is the base? What are the components of the base? Can our Congress earmark the just share elsewhere? Can the president impound? Can the president lower the 40% share, let's say, to 25%? Can national government impose conditions? Do you need a budget? Do you need to put in the just share in the GAA every year? And lastly, what will be the extent of the control of Congress? And I will answer this. But first, let us examine and read carefully the wording of the Constitution. And I have highlighted the important words in red. Local governments are entitled to a just share as determined by law in the national taxes which shall be automatically released to them. And to your right is the provision, Section 284 under our 1991 Local Government Code. It says national internal revenue taxes, and there are conditions wherein the president can lower the current 40% to not lower than 30%. The basis for such lowering would be if there is an unmanageable public sector deficit. So just comparing the wording on the Constitution, it says national taxes, and under our law, national internal revenue taxes. Please also note the phrase determined by law. Determined by law under the Constitution follows just share. It doesn't follow national taxes. And I will explain the implication or the import of that shortly. So if you look at the Mandanas ruling, is not the only ruling of our Supreme Court pertaining to the tax allotment or the once upon a time internal revenue allotment. There are cases on what is the base, when should it be released, can Congress or the executive branch impound or withhold, do you need appropriation, what is the extent of the congressional control. And I will give you a summary of these cases. There are two occasions in the past wherein our Congress did some what I call legislative withholding. Number one, putting a portion of the Internal Revenue Allotment then to what we call the Special Equalization Fund. The other one, putting a portion of the IRA in the program funds, which can only be released when we meet certain fiscal targets. The Supreme Court said, no, that cannot be done because according to the Supreme Court, according to the Constitution, the release must be automatic. There shouldn't be any condition. Next, once upon a time, the president lowered the IRA to lower than 30% at that particular time. The Supreme Court said no, the president can only lower the current share up to 30 for as long as the conditions under the law are met, namely unmanageable public sector deficit, recommendation from 3 national government agencies, and consultation with the leagues of local government units. During that time, the president did not comply with those requirements. Hence, the Supreme Court said the withholding is unlawful. And lastly, while this last case does not pertain to local government units, we can also learn from this. Here, the DBM imposed a no report, no release condition to the release of their funding. Supreme Court said no, because the funds must be automatically released. Now, let's talk about the Mandanas ruling. This is a 2018 case. The Supreme Court said that Congress went beyond its authority by limiting the base to the national internal revenue taxes. As I've explained earlier, under the Constitution, the base is national taxes, which should include custom duties, and the phrase as determined by law does not qualify national taxes. It qualifies the phrase just share. Okay, so for the last 34 years, our local government units have been deprived of their share from a bigger base of national taxes, not just collections of the BIR, but also collections of the Bureau of Customs. Now, the appropriate term is not internal revenue allotment, because that's only roughly half of what LGUs are entitled. Now, I'm calling it national tax allotment because the base is the national tax. Second thing we learned from the Mandanas versus Ochoa case would be, what is the base? Ano po yung share? Right now, what is the 40% share of LGUs? Ito po yung base. Value-added tax, excise tax, documentary stamp tax, collections of the Bureau of Customs, ARM, national wealth, tobacco products, franchise tax. These are the taxes na kailangan po may share ang local government units. And according to the Supreme Court, this list of 7 is not exclusive. No? Kung meron pa pong in the future na magkakaroon ng national tax, kailangan po merong bahagi or share ang ating local government units. And the last learning in the Mandanas Ochoa case is, according to the Supreme Court, hindi na natin kailangan pang isama ang national tax allotment sa ating General Appropriations Act para po siyang foreign debt. It doesn't have to be included in the GAA. There's no need for a yearly appropriation because according to the Constitution, it is automatic. Inclusion of the just share of the LGUs in the annual GAA is unnecessary, if not superfluous. So again, parang foreign debt, kahit hindi po ilalabas ng Kongreso, kailangan po may share ang LGUs in the national taxes because of the automatic share provision in the Constitution. Now that LGUs have more, they have more funds. Ano pong epekto ng having more funds? Of course, greater fiscal independence. No? EON 198 talks about devolution, sustaining the devolution. Local governments will have a bigger development fund and therefore they can undertake more hard and or soft projects. For those who are innovative, they have bigger room for innovation. For their public-private partnership, their joint ventures, they can have a substantial contribution to this public-private partnership. And of course, kung mas marami kang pondo, kailangan mas malalim din ang iyong accountability on the part of the local government unit itself and on the part of the local chief executive and all local government official. So more means more resources and at the same time, greater accountability. So that ends my presentation. Earlier when I was introduced, there was a mention of this book. By the way, this is a compilation of all Supreme Court decisions, all DILG opinions on the local government code from 1900 up to the present. I published this book in time for the 30th year of our 1991 local government code. Yun na lamang po. Maraming salamat, magandang hapon, and I will entertain your questions after all the panelists have given their respective presentations. Good afternoon and see you all in a bit.
Thank you, Attorney Al. Wow, that's a fantastic presentation. Very short, pero it's really a how do you say a crash course, no, on history lesson, also on laws, the Philippine Constitution, Supreme Court rulings. Very, very comprehensive and in a nutshell, it's all there. So thank you very much for that. Great. We'll have a chance to talk to Attorney Al a little later. And of course, if you do have more questions, and I see there are a couple already dito sa Q&A chat box. No, if nasa Zoom kayo, all you need to do is go down to the bottom bar and then the rightmost icon there in Q&A. Just put your questions there. Yeah, and then we'll see Attorney Al a little later. So next, we'd like to call on our next speaker. No, we have Assistant Secretary Eleazar Ricote. No, he is the Deputy Executive Director at the Philippine Public-Private Partnership Center, or the PPP Center. He is a career officer with more than 15 years of technical and managerial experience in infrastructure and development undertakings. He is a recognized infrastructure development professional in the country and in the ASEAN region. Eli is a scholar of public administration, governance, public policy, project management, local governments, PPP, and related areas. He has delivered lectures and written and published several papers and researches on the same topics. Currently, he is faculty and research advisor at the Public Management Development Program, or the PMDP, and resource person at the Career Executive Service Board, or the CESB, Executive Course Gabay ng Paglilingkod, to speak today about the PPP track for local development projects and the full devolution directive. Let us all welcome ASEC Ellie Ricote. ASEC Ellie, hello.
Hello, magandang hapon, Subi. Thank you
Magandang
for having me.
Yeah, thanks for joining us this afternoon. If you can bring up your presentation deck,
Okay, I'll do it now.
I'll turn over the virtual stage to you.
Here.
Ayan, there it is. Okay, on to you.
Okay. Magandang hapon. Thank you, everyone. Thank you, Livable Cities, for inviting me. Sir Bill, Governor Kua, Mayor Bing, mga iba pang mga mayor at local chief executives nandito ngayon. Magandang hapon po. Maupay nga kulop akong mga kapwa-waray who are in the room. Thank you for this opportunity. Maganda yung introduction, Attorney Al, on the fiscal autonomy, and he particularly mentioned that this bigger anong tawag niya? National tax allotment will in fact empower LGUs to do more PPPs, get to do more projects. I'll talk about the PPP track for local development projects and the full devolution directive in the context of the Mandanas Ruling, the full devolution directive. Can we do more PPPs? Should we be doing more PPPs? Paano matutulungan yung ating mga PPP initiatives? I know most of us are receiving unsolicited proposals, etc. Can we be more empowered to do more PPPs? Can I move my slide here? Well, quick outline of my presentation. We'll talk about the Mandanas Ruling and its relevance to PPP, our local PPP program, some of the legal framework. There are recent directives that will empower, make PPPs more viable for local governments, since the ILG and PPP-centered directives. Some policy and process improvements that we have been doing, and given the lessons from existing projects, and of course, the local PPP strategy that we're pursuing at the PPP Center, and some pipelines, some examples of projects happening right now in several local governments in the area of PPP, and we'll end with some takeaways on how that we can bring back to our respective local governments. Okay, let's start with this one. Again, this has extensively been discussed by Attorney Al. Substantial share for local governments, bigger fiscal autonomy, fiscal resources to do more. Nakalagay dun sa Mandanas is devolution, dun sa EO 138. EO 138, ito yung initial na executive order para siyang implementing rules and regulations ng Mandanas Ruling. What will be devolved, the functions, services, and facilities will be fully devolved to LGUs. And this include those indicated in Section 17 of the Local Government Code. Nilista ko ito under the Section 17. Karamihan nito are the very same infrastructure and development projects that cities, local municipalities, and provinces are actually doing as PPPs. Ito din yung mga proyektong ginagawa natin as PPPs, both solicited and unsolicited, and I know some of you have been doing that. We're familiar because we've been assisting some of you. Capacity building, of course, is part of the provision of that 138. Mindful of the fact na kailangan talaga natin as we venture into this new era of more power for local governments, need capacity building. There's a provision in the EO 138 that the training arm of the ILG Local Government Academy will be harmonizing all of this capacity development intervention. Isa sa mga very critical capacity development intervention ay on PPPs, and this is where we're going to come in and help with LGA and all the other national and other agencies or institutions providing training, capacity building on how to do local planning, investment programming, resource mobilization, and budgeting, and of course, undertaking PPPs. Nabanggit ba ang PPP dun sa Mandanas? Hindi, pero dun sa EO 138, nabanggit na kailangan natin i-strengthen ang planning, programming, and budgeting ng local governments. At kasama dito ay ang pag-create ng ang local governments having to put together the annual investment program. Kung saan nakalatag, nakahimay ano yung projects they will fund through their funds, through borrowings, and through PPPs. And this will be sourced from the local investment program of provinces, cities, and municipalities. At the end of the day, it's really how we are able to plan, map out, prioritize projects. We have been doing this. We have respective planning offices, units, and this is a regular process na ginagawa natin. But the EO puts more premium into planning, programming, and investment programming, particularly possible options for PPPs of the critical projects sectors that have been devolved under the EO 128 directive. Ano yung legal framework? It's already existing. Sabi nga namin, tamang-tama, the directive to bring PPPs to local governments have already been started or initiated even before the Mandanas ruling. As you know, as early as 2017, we have mounted a local PPP strategy. Even before that, the ILG has issued circulars encouraging, providing the guidelines on how LGUs can do PPPs. But the bigger hugot is this. Nasa ating 10-point agenda of the current administration, we look at infrastructure development as a major program. Nandun sa 10-point agenda is increased infrastructure spending to account for around 5% of GDP by 2022. Isa doon sa infrastructure spending option ay PPP. Hindi lang government financing through our budget or borrowings through ODA, but even private sectors of finance that bring resources, financing, efficiencies, technology into these projects through PPPs. In fact, dun sa build program natin, around 100 plus projects, no, identified, around 29 or 30 doon ay PPPs. Well, what is PPP? I'm sure you are all familiar with this. It's a range of contractual agreements between the public sector and a private entity. The public sector here can be the local government. Basically, a contractual agreement undertaken in most infrastructure and or development projects or services. Very loose yung ating definition of projects, hindi lang yung hard infrastructure, but even soft infrastructure, ICT systems, health facilities, school buildings, and these other requirements under the current pandemic or new normal situation. Dahil contractual agreement, merong roles and responsibilities, there's risk allocation, there's risk and reward sharing between both parties. Again, similar basically concepts, long-term partnership compared to our 918 for procurement, na annual yung procurement or partnership with the private provider. In PPPs, long-term partnerships, no? And the BOT long hanggang 50 years is allowed. Depende sa extent of investment put in by the private sector. Define roles of the private sector can be to the finance, construct, operate, etc. Risk allocation. Some values that PPP can bring into the projects, integrated approach, and this is where we can bring in private sector to do all aspects of the project, construction, operation, maintenance, kesa dun sa usually inefficient way na hihimayin natin, iba yung construction, iba yung operation, through different procurement processes and budgetary schedules. Private sector capacity, of course, optimized risk allocation, hindi care of government ang karamihan ng risk na, but it can transfer to the private sector. Output specifications, unlike yung ating 9184 na very prescriptive, we have to put out a very detailed specification or ABC, di ba, when we issue invitation to bid. Dito we issue output specifications and we allow private sector to be creative in designing, delivering the service and the facility in the most cost-efficient manner, design, engineering, construction, and even financing. And of course, potential revenue share. There are projects that the revenue mechanisms of the project is more than enough to allow the private sector to recover, and part of that can be given a share to the LGU. Quick presentation here of structures, because this is important when you look at the nature and extent of what private sector can do for you. Pwedeng full PPP, get private sector to do the design, construct, and finance, of course, the facility, and then to operate and maintain. Pwede rin, iba-ibang, or tawag natin hybrid, iba-ibang components, no? Design and construction, care of government, and then you just engage private sector to operate and maintain. For example, public market, or government, private sector to do the operation and maintenance. So operation and maintenance agreement ang PPP contract natin. So depende sa, as I said, the anong component ng proyekto we think private sector will add value and reinforce the portion government, the LGU, is doing care of its own resources. With the EO 138, we think there will be more alignment of plans and programs at the national regional levels, providing more information asymmetry. So some projects at the local level with this alignment and alignment of plans, both at the national and local level. Sabi ni Mayor Bing kanina, gumagawa ngayon ng Devolution Transition plans, no, ang committees, it will allow symmetry and have LGUs look at projects they can jointly work on together. Tinatawag natin na economies of scale, di ba? Some LGUs, kung lalo na yung mga projects na malalaki ang kailangan na scope to be viable for a PPP arrangement, solid waste, water and sanitation, even power, we can do scaling, increasing the scope and scale of the project to make it viable through horizontal linkages. Sabi ni Attorney Agra kanina, it will also mean substantial contribution of the private sector, no? With the Mandanas and the EO 138. We'll have more contribution to this PPPs. This will in fact facilitate some LGUs having the ability to do availability payments type of revenue or mechanism for the private sector. This can be applicable to BTs, build transfer and build lease transfer types of PPPs. We know this, of course, the legal framework for our PPPs applies to local governments as well, is the BOT law and its implementing rules and regulations. Meron tayong solicited and unsolicited track. Solicited track is tayo ang nag-initiate ng project study, part of our plans, and then we solicit private sector to participate and submit bids. Ang isa naman ang nag-initiate ay private sector to unsolicited proposals. I know of several LGUs who have received unsolicited proposals. And this is possible under the BOT law. And at some point, of course, merong challenge process na competitive procurement. So merong challenge and then matching process. In the end, the idea is private sector or the government getting the best deal from either the original proponent or the challenger. Again, various modalities, BOT, build this transfer, depend, as I said, as the nature and scope of what the LGU think the private sector can do for them under disagreements. Legal frameworks, I know LGUs are doing JVs as well. So ito yun, tingnan natin yung sa baba, no? BOT types, the BOT law is something the LGUs can do. For joint ventures, naglabas ng circular and DILG in 2016-120, and Attorney Al was with us when we were doing this. Of course, another DILG and PPP Center joint circular on joint venture. So this can be invoked as LGUs enact their own local PPP or JV ordinance or code. Both JVs and BOTs have, as I said, solicited and unsolicited proposal options. Process, I will not discuss this in detail, but just the point here in solicited track, importante yung development stage, preparation, feasibility study, market sounding off to the market, the project that you have in mind, and having them get a gauge of the viability of the project. So that in the end, when you go out and tender the project, there's a sense of mayroong takers yung proyekto. The otherwise unsolicited, the challenge of unsolicited proposals is, of course, the ability of LGUs to assess and evaluate the appropriateness of the unsolicited proposal to your project, to your local development requirements. Note that in unsolicited, it's the private sector has put together the whole project idea, did the feasibility study, and they submitted it to you with some specific innovation or new technology that they're proposing. But again, it's approved under the law, and it's something we acknowledge and encourage as well, both BOTs and JVPPPs. Ito yung mga bago. As early as 2016, naglabas si DILG ng circular, Circular 2016-120, guidelines for the implementation of, ang tawag nila, LGU P4, PPP for the people, based on the same principles of decentralization, accountability, innovation, etc. Incorporates into this to the circular BOTs and JVs, as I mentioned, and suggested or recommended the LGUs enact their local PPP codes to put this all together into a locally contextualized ordinance or legislation, providing them the details on the modalities that they can undertake, the procedures and contract drafting, regulation, contract management, accountability, etc. So ito yung requirements for the P4 project under this circular. The LG should have enacted the PPP code. Of course, align these projects they have in mind to be done as PPP with the local development framework, comprehensive land use, etc. In 2019, we also issued a joint memorandum circular to supplement 2016-120. This one particularly on the joint venture options. And we kasama annex nung yung unang circular, ang annex nito is a draft PPP code that LGUs actually have used as a pattern, as a template. Ito naman, ang annex nitong circular ay template joint venture code. Again, providing the details, selection committee, unsolicited proposals, negotiation process, appeals process, etc. under a JV option for local governments. So merong sample JV templates. And I know of several LGUs have successfully enacted JV code and has done really good JV projects. Top of mind right now is the JV code of Valenzuela. It's a really good example. Tapos meron din 2020, kahit nasa pandemic na tayo, the challenge we realize with the ILGs, kulang ng institutional capacities ng LGUs, no? Sino sa loob ng LGU ang magtatrabaho nitong napakaraming relatively new idea of PPP, project preparation, feasibility study, review unsolicited proposal. We issued 2020-167, Memorandum Circular 2020-167. Basically, formalizing the LEDIPO, Local Economic Development and Investment Promotion Office, and creating under that an economic enterprise division that LGUs can establish formally. And the economic enterprise division has also been nakalagay doon sa circular yung kanyang PPP-related functions. Yan, serve as the PPP unit responsible for planning, overseeing and implementing projects, provide support to the LGU Joint Venture Selection Committee, contract management, and do the coordination with the center on the following items: identification of projects, development and structuring, accessing relevant project development resources, etc. So even yung institutional setup within the LGUs have been formalized through a circular. The center as well has a governing board. We've issued policy circulars parang to guide national and local governments in their PPP projects and formalize lessons from various projects and formalize them into policy guidance or circulars. Some of them were done by the policy governing board. Dati-rati kasama pa si Sir Bill dyan as our private sector representative. And these are the areas where there are now circulars relative to PPP. Monitoring, managing affected employees, assessing value for money, public consultation, mainstreaming gender and other social safeguards, etc. Several current requirements to make a project viable, attractive to the private sector, and responsive to this emerging concerns in project structuring, project financing, etc. Other resources available, there's now a GPROM, Generic Preferred Risk Allocation. Lahat ng projects mayroong risk, no? But we have, in a way, put templated ano yung risks during construction, during operation, what should be care of government, should be care of private sector, what can be shared, what can be issued to this GPROM. It's also available online that can be used as guide. Assessing local PPP codes. LGUs are drafting their PPP codes. Ano yung kailangan nandun? Ano yung template? So we have this parang guide on how to put together a robust and a complete PPP code. And unsolicited proposed assessment forms. Also a guide to LGUs who have received unsolicited proposals on how to assess, what to look for, etc. Also recently, we have put together this PTCs. It's available on our website. It's parang guide siya on how to put together contracts, ano yung terms and conditions and dapat na andun at dapat i-approve ng approving body and local sanggunian in this case. And we're currently drafting a local PPP guide for health projects. I know of several LGUs under the current new normal pandemic situation, no, venturing into health facility expansion, quarantine facility development. They can be done as PPPs. And we're drafting, as I said, a guide on how to do health PPPs, local health PPPs. Ano yung components that can be done, management components, construction operation considerations. What else? Well, you all know the PPP Center. We're the lead coordination monitoring body for all of PPPs. We're providing assistance to both national and local governments. We're assisting to policies I mentioned earlier. We've been doing even under the online setup, lahat ng local development course. I'm sure you've attended. There's always a PPP topic there, and I'm normally the one presenting that. So there's that, and also customized training programs for your PPP team in specific areas of needs, capacity building. There's also this facility that LGUs can tap in preparing the necessary feasibility study work. During solicited mode, conduct a feasibility study, project structuring work, preparation of tender documents, and of course, for unsolicited proposal, evaluation and negotiation with the original proponent, assistance in the challenge process. There's a facility you can access. This is a pool of funds put together at the PPP Center. There's a local panel for PDMF, local panel, particularly for local governments. We also incorporated the resiliency inputs to these projects, given the additional funding from Urban Resilience Fund, where we incorporate climate change, resiliency, and other disaster management components to these PPP projects in the areas of design, construction, financing, and structuring. So there's a resource available. As I said, the center has mounted a local PPP strategy. This is towards regional equity, providing more, encouraging more PPPs in the local governments in these key areas. So local strategy, as I said, some initial accomplishments. Yung picture sa baba, this is the memorandum of agreement we signed with the League of Cities and yes, Mayor Bing, and we did that even before the pandemic. And as I said, even during the pandemic, several cities have approached us. We're helping them put together the PPP projects and review unsolicited proposals. We've also established PPP knowledge corners in all NEDA regional offices all over the country. So meron na kayong go-to PPP unit, PPP focal person, PPP library sa lahat ng NEDA regional offices. And of course, collaboration with other institutions helping local governments on local infrastructure and development projects and financing. Pipeline, let me end this few slides. We have now, based on our monitoring, around 95 projects being implemented by LGUs as PPPs, 19 in the pipeline. Karamihan unsolicited. Where are itong pipeline natin na 19? Nasaan itong mga to? These are from all over the country. Ano yung mga types of projects? Water and sanitation, solid waste management, vertical infrastructure. These are the town center, city halls, public market expansion and modernization, tourism facilities, and other IT and transport, mga bus terminals. Priority sectors, and ito yung mga lumalabas na projects na nakikita namin and we think will be upcoming more and more under the current full devolution scenario. Climate change, health facilities, IT systems, water and supply, solid waste management, food security, mga bagsakan centers, and hopefully renewable energies now that LGUs can do it and they can bundle it, mga small renewable energies in 2 or 3 local governments or province level na power project. Some examples of projects now being done as PPP. Ito really good example, yung Iloilo City Central and Terminal Project. Central and Terminal Public Market Project. It's a solicited project under development stage. We've partnered a collaboration with the mayor of Iloilo, and there's a slaughterhouse also. We have done some market sounding. There's a very good interest from prospective private partners. Quezon City Integrated Solid Waste Management Facility, a joint venture, unsolicited proposal, now ongoing challenge process. Another one, Ormoc City Water Supply System. Mayor Richard attended our session on TPP at UPC LRG and approached our office. We helped them put together the feasibility study. Nasa under development na kami, and we did a market sounding to prospective investors from Singapore a few weeks ago. So water supply system in Ormoc City. Others coming up, mga projects na nakikita namin with some LGUs approaching us. Again, water supply and sanitation, emerging transportation, tourism, renewable energy. And some examples, so water supply and sanitation, Bagao, Bislig City Water Supply, Ormoc City Water, Tugigaraw Septage Management Project, solid waste, as I said, Quezon City, there's Zamboanga City Waste to Value Facility Project, Jensen Sanitary Landfill, and vertical infrastructure, yung, of course, Iloilo, Bicol Universities, again, ito naman pang SUC also because we look at SUCs as local implementing agencies as well. Transportation, Quezon City Footbridge, IT system, Davao City No Contract Apprehension, yung Cebu Onlad Bayan Local Government Information System, etc. So madami, no? Under the new normal, this is also an IETF directive. Ano yung mga project would we expect to be undertaken as PPP possibly? Ayan, hospitals and designated quarantine facilities, health system, laboratories, critical infrastructure that will help our COVID response. Recently, we're in the process of building the framework for resilient and sustainable local PPPs, concretizing this disaster resilience, disaster risk, climate change management components into our PPPs in the design, in the financing structures. And hopefully this will be formalized into specific projects later. Okay, last two slides, key takeaways from this quick sharing. Number one, the policy and institutional framework for local PPPs have been established even before the Mandanas Ruling. Naandun na yung legal framework. In fact, some LGUs have already been pursuing PPPs, and some are really noteworthy. The Mandanas Ruling and the full devolution directive under EU 100 actually reinforces or strengthens, builds more capacity for PPP as a financing and implementation option, and its significant contribution to local economic development. The LGU's changing fiscal situation, this bigger revenue share, more fiscal space, does not mean kayo na ang magpa-fund ng lahat ng proyekto nyo. Because kulang talaga yun, kulang pa rin yun. It means LGU will be more creditworthy, and you can leverage such fiscal space towards more viable local PPP projects that are sustainable, attractive to the private sector, and will generate the best value for money for the LGU and its constituents. You'll be more empowered, more attractive to be a partner with the private sector, more creditworthy to, as I said, realize more viable PPP projects, develop projects in more detail, which brings me to the next point. Let's invest in strengthening project planning and programming. Sadly, ito talaga yung weak link in most LGUs, particularly in project structuring and development, procurement and implementation. These are critical due diligence investments that I think are very significant to project finance and implementation success. Not just for PPPs, but all types of projects you will undertake. Very detailed, diligent investment planning, programming, project preparation, and structuring. Let's invest in that. Capacity building, of course, is always a need, and there's a lot available. Capacity building and technical assistance are available for you venturing into PPPs. There's several PPP codes and actual PPP projects to learn from. They can be replicated and customized. Another challenge I would say is let's engage the private sector through existing platforms, the RDC, the Chambers of Commerce, the DTI Regional Office, and there are other platforms, the regional transition plans, our teams. There are platforms where as early as project preparation, project idea, project concept planning, you can talk to private sector and get their inputs on what projects you can do as PPPs. It's always worth seeking their inputs, and surely there will be PPP ideas that you can undertake better and in more concrete terms. And finally, engage the academe, our SUCs and local universities and colleges. They can provide critical inputs into local PPP policies, project planning, programming, feasibility studies, etc. The Mandanas Ruling, as I said, strengthened, reinforced the LGU's authority, capacity, and resources to do PPPs. And we should do that. Maraming salamat po.
Thank you, Asek Eli. Very, very interesting and inspiring presentation. I liked it when you said that there are out of the 100 plus build projects, no, about 20 plus or up to 30 is actually a PPP, no. So that's a great news to hear, no. And also 19 projects ongoing, 95 in the pipeline. Alam mo, it's quite interesting also how you mentioned that there are so many templates and guidelines available. Kanina binila ko eh. I think there are about 14 templates plus 4 more in the Succeed More, almost 20 templates. So a lot of this is there, and I think an important takeaway na binanggit mo is to prepare, no, to prepare well, to copy well from the previous projects, and to reach out to the private sector na kung ano yung may tutulong nila. So fantastic. Thank you.
Sabi ko nga, Suwi, PPP is properly prepared project, properly procured project.
I could not agree more. Well said. So thank you for that. Please hang on over there. We'll
gladly respond to questions later.
We'll catch up with you in the open forum. In fact, if they have questions, maraming mga tanong na rin sa Q&A, no? If you can answer some of them there directly, that would be great. Let's go on to our next speaker, no? And she is Miss Ida Tiongson. So Miss Ida started as a traditional banker, holding senior executive positions at the National Australia Bank and the Philippine National Bank until she was hired in 2007 to head the Opal Portfolio Investment SPV AMC Incorporated. So being in charge of distressed assets and turning around businesses. During her business, due to her business finance expertise, she has been sought after to speak on topics relating to fintech, digital strategies, risk management, corporate rehabilitation, turning businesses around, and most especially business financing. So at the APEC Thailand and Vietnam, CPA Australia, the Asian Bankers Enterprise Risk Management in Singapore, and the Asian CEO Forum, just to name a few. So presently, she also holds directorships in various companies and is also a lecturer in the Institute of Corporate Directors, also in the Ateneo Graduate Business Graduate School of Business and the World Bank IFC. So to talk to us about leverage project financing and understanding the future cash flows from the Mandanas ruling, let us all welcome Ms. Ida Johnson. Hi, Ms. Ida.
Hi, thank you, Sue.
Hi, magandang hapon. Good. Let me just,
everyone.
nice to see you've got everything ready there. So if you can bring up your slides, I turn it over to you. Thank you.
Yep, I'm fine. I'm just going to use my virtual background as a slide. So thank you, Sue. Thank you, Bill. Thank you, Livable Cities, for this invitation. Really my pleasure to be speaking here beside top speakers regarding this topic. I've been eagerly hearing the comments of and the lectures of Attorney Agra, as well as Asik Eli, and later on Mayor Bing, and eventually in our panel, Governor Dax. Now, this is historical. This is momentous for our country. In a way, it can be said that it's kind of like federalism, as our LGUs will be much empowered by providing substantial increase in the government's revenue allocation previously with the national government. The implementation of the law will in effect provide that liquidity that can help in our LGU's bounce back journey. And how can we expand on that? Since the LGUs are expected to have better cash flows, they can approach GFIs and request for leverage project financing, which is, by the way, my topic. So repayment for the increased internal revenue allocation, now called the national tax allocation, or I should say allotment, as prescribed by DBM, will allow them to borrow, repayment of which will come from the increased NTA. So, you know, with bigger budget comes bigger responsibilities. Just to qualify, some of the slides I've extracted from the research that I've done with the DOF and DILG, and yep. So not some of the information, especially the numerical ones, are coming from or had come from the DILG. So here we go. So my topic is on the leverage financing capacity development. To start off with, someone did ask in one of the questions, what's the increase are we expecting? This is from a DILG slide, no? From the projected 2021 compared to 2022, that's approximately 28% increase. Without the Supreme Court decision, that's 848 billion. But with the Supreme Court decision, it's 1.083 trillion. So basically, the impact is higher for the LGUs, and of course, unfortunately, for the national government, it's lower. So where is it coming from? What's the percentage in terms of the division? I need to actually mention this so we know where the repayment's coming from. It's similar in terms of the GAA, the percentage allocation. It's bigger pie. And according to the DILG, it's around about, as I mentioned, 28%. But the allocation is kind of similar. So just to show you a bigger picture of this particular slide, since it's fairly small there. So there we go. So the IRA LGU expected 2022 will be around, this is for all of the LGUs, and we have in the provinces 82 LGU cities, 146 municipalities, 1,488, and barangays 41,931. So that's what we're looking at per barangay, per municipalities, and so on. Now, just to touch on this before I get deeper into my topic, the DILG is the ultimate they're responsible in a lot of things, but ultimately responsible in ensuring, and that's why one of the important job under the EO and on EO 138 and the MC 067 is, of course, the capacity building. And that capacity building includes the development of other CapDev strategies and other appropriate mechanisms, among others. What about the DBM, the budget and management? Of course, the annual budget preparation. And with that, including as part of the work as well, is the capacity building. So in a way, what the government's really doing is to ensure that this is actually implemented well. ASEC Ellie has already mentioned where would the sources come from. Again, this is like the LG slides, which I changed a bit. I went to the highest and the lowest. When I say change a bit, not the numbers, but to see where majority of the potential sources will be coming from as far as the NTA is concerned. And big bulk of it is going to come from the DPWH. And the second percentage is coming from the local government support fund, and the third from the DepEd. So that those three that actually compose already of 80%. You add DSWD, that'll be about 83%. So if you look at what projects are actually being done by those departments having expertise on those, you may wish to line it up from there. Okay. According to the LGC section 17 on the devolved basic services facilities, again, ASEC, Ellie has already mentioned this, but you may wish to pinpoint which one can they do, where the barangays can do it, which functions and services, and where the provinces can do it by actually just reviewing this particular slide. And this one I'm going to skip because that's been discussed by ASEC. And I'm going to go through the full devolution of the certain functions. Now, this is nothing like different from the way that I say it, from a bank having a head office where having all the functions there and bringing it down to the branches level. So that it's the head office that's doing the deposits and doing the lending, but now it's given to the branches. I tell you, the devil is in the details, and the implementation, 92% of success is in the implementation, and hence the need to acquire a project financing skill. And that's why I believe 4 sectors of the government. So we have the Bureau of Local Government Finance helping out, and as mentioned again by ASEC Ellie, they have the Economic Enterprise Division that can help out for the PPP projects. And of course, the DILG and the CapDev through the National Government Academy. And to add up, Ateneo Graduate School can also help you out there. I'm going to touch on that later. Under the 067, on the adoption of the CapDev, won't go through this in detail because the other speakers already mentioned that, but where my own interpretation with what in this particular section, the 6.3 on the capacity pillars, for you to be able to actually do proper implementation of project finance, there's 2 sets of project finance here. It's the conversion of the LGUs into like a branch. So there has to be some sort of change in mindset, and hence governance principles and learnings on the governance principles must be taken. And of course, I'll call it proper strategy planning, not just short term. So you have a long term, like 10 years, then you will have a 5 years. That is a project in itself. Now, I won't go through this in detail because strategy planning is really a 3-day course. Governance is really a full-day course. And so is the typical project financing is really a minimum of a 2-day course. But to give you a feel on the project financing on the feasibility studies, given that I think I have 30 minutes in total, right? All right, what has been mentioned, no, that you can structure it differently. You can structure it like you will do it yourself. So it's really the LGU, you borrow from Land Bank and DVP and you do the project yourself. Whether it's a Palenque project, whether it's a school project, you do it yourself. Or you can do it via the PPP where you have a private sector coming in with you, and why not? And with that, as mentioned by, again, ASEC Elite, you can structure it differently, like a BOT project, a turnkey project, according to Attorney Agra. It is not disallowed, so it's negative, but I'm just repeating the word. It's not disallowed to have a subsidiary. Hence, what you may wish to look into is a possible special project subsidiary where you can have an input into how the structure will be done, whether it's on a joint venture basis or whether someone else is going to complete it and then do a turnkey for you. But whatever it is, when you're looking into a project financing, for argument's sake, a construction loan, there are a lot of stakeholders here, and there's a lot of inputs. So it's kind of like not an overnight thing that you can learn. And remember, historically, this is belonging to the experts of the DPWH and what have you. Going through this, at this point, I understand it's only Land Bank and DVP who can lend the LGUs. Am I correct there? Someone can qualify that I'm not correct, but I believe it's only Land Bank and DVP. But if you have that lenders, the main question is, like, if we are now getting this increase of 28%, how much then can we borrow? And that's always the case. And a lot of people think the project finance is only that, when that's actually only 1/10. In fact, 30% is financing, 70% is planning. So not to go through again this slide in the absence of time, just kind of like want to cite any example of any project. But any project when you start off with, whether it's a school, whether it's a Palenque, you would find that the first couple of years, you will not be able to earn anything. But in your case, the income is more on coming from the national tax allotment, which is previously called the IRA. The typical LGU financing is subject to the approval of the DBM in terms of the allotment. You can borrow 20% of the IRA. So you may wish to work backwards, and you may wish to add on that, well, there's also an income and sustainability in that particular project. So it's not just, it's a project and that's it. But some projects, though, will not earn for you, but your risk is more on the completion risk, and hence the need for all these feasibility studies. This is simplistic viewpoint, okay? And I just want to give a bird's eye view on the working backwards or how much maximum you can kind of borrow on the concept of the allocated budget, the concept of that 20% of that allocated budget, the interest rate, for argument's sake, 10% per annum, for argument's sake only. I know you guys are probably lower than that. And the percentage that you're getting in terms of the income. So I made a simple sample calculation. Now, for argument's sake, you have the two biggest, 58% coming from the DPWH and a certain percentage, about 9% is coming from the DepEd. And most likely, you would have a pressure in completing some of those projects. So for argument's sake, you have an allotted 500 million here, and 20% of that, if you want to maximize that of the national tax allotment, that means 20% of 500 million is about 100 million. Now you want to segregate that as in, because 50% should be spent, for argument's sake, for road projects and perhaps 10% for school projects. Then perhaps you want to work backwards. So how much can I borrow to be able to maximize the increased NTA? So with that, working backwards, assuming at 5%, and say you want to pay that in 5 years, depending on the policy of Land Bank or DVP, then working backwards the maximum loan for this particular road project, assuming that you can get an allotment of 50 a year for this particular project, it's 235 million. So it's really basic math. for this. I'm giving you just bird's eye view. This is simplistic viewpoint, but it's deeper than that. Okay, for the school project, again, assuming that you can get a 10 million per year, and because you want to you want to use up 10% of the 100 million for this, and you want to use up 50% of the 100 million for this. Now, for that, assuming again a 10% per annum working backwards for 5 years to repay that, the maximum loan you should be able to get at about 47 million. Again, on the assumption of the 20% as approved by the DBM on your allotment. Okay, I hope I'm not confusing there, and I'm going through this fairly quickly. I want to highlight that it's very important that we go deeper as far as doing the feasibility study, and I'm glad that government agencies are helping out in empowering and capacitating our LGUs, because according to statistics, only 16% of the projects are actually successful in the first 5 years. So if you're looking at it, around about 84% would fail. Failure of the project could be a lot of reasons. And some of the reasons in terms of the project failure, poor communication and visibility with stakeholders, underestimating the time and the budget needed, forgetting the project management is also people management, failure to adjust or change when things go wrong. So that's something to do with risk management. The what if analysis. What if a certain would walk away from this particular deal? What if we don't have sufficient supplies, and so what, all of those what if analysis. Lack of integrated project controls. Maybe there would be diversion of funds if you don't have any sinking fund embedded in that. No consistent project closeout. That's a little bit more legal in terms of what's supposed to be considered complete and therefore it can be turned over in cases of a BOT or a turnkey project. Not making time to learn. I should actually bold that. Being reactive. The only thing constant is change. And in terms of the risk, that's why we got to be proactive. There are a lot of risk involved. Country risk is one of them. What's going to happen to our country? What about how the economy is going? Construction risk. I'm sure some of you are familiar with this. That's why you're normally putting a bond or whatever buffer that you want to put in. Technology risk, design risk, regulatory lack of submission of compliance, social and community risk. The last thing you would want is you're building the project and the community would say, you're not supposed to cut those trees. You know, something like that, or your project is making our water dirty or something like that. That's a huge risk. As we know, I could mention a few projects. I'm going to keep that to myself at this point. Financing is a major risk. In fact, 70% of the risk is actually coming from financing as well. Either the timing is wrong, what is being provided to you is not sufficient. The project itself, there's a flaw in the project. Health and safety is very popular at the moment. You're going in and last thing you know is you have 20 people having COVID, and that will be part of your expense because they got sick when they were working. That sort of thing. That's part of the risk as well. And completion risk. There are other risks, but these are actually the top risks that you're facing when it comes to project financing. And all right, I actually missed a slide that I failed. Oh yeah, no, I didn't. Let's remember, like for argument's sake, DPWH, they have the expertise on this, and why not coordinate with them? The first couple of years, I would say there has to be continuity, and the next year you may wish to still coordinate with them and fund it yourself and still through them. I'm not sure how you're going to do that, but certainly when it comes to expertise, the fact that they've been doing that, and my recommendation also is to have a project champion that will be on top of all these projects, whether you're doing it via the PPP, turnkey, BOT, SPV, you yourself doing it, whatever. Because when it comes to project financing, and I could talk about this 4 hours for each and every topic. Technical feasibility, as mentioned by ASEC, very important. Economic feasibility is more on the finance side, completion, proper financing. Could you actually repay the debt? Legal feasibility. That's why the due diligence, again, as mentioned by ASEC, has to be ensured. The disclosure, the non-disclosure, whatever legal feasibility into that project. Operational feasibility, scheduling, the timeline. Project financing really is really on a long term of a specific project. And if you're doing separate projects, I hope your project person can help you out here. And this is why I totally agree that PPP would be a great way to do this, because you have the expertise of the private sector and could eventually do the turnkey for you. According to the MC 067, you got to have a minimum of 3-year projection. Now, for me, 3-year projection is not enough. If you're financing it by equity, meaning this is the funds I'm getting this year, and this is the project, and that's it, fully paid. But if it's not, the projection must be the life of the loan or up to the completion of the project, and the sustainability of the project. And I concur with the other two speakers in terms of the planning, because the devil is in the detail. So please do coordinate, do a lot of learning, coordinate with our government agencies, as mentioned earlier, that are into this. And of course, I would like to advise that I teach in Ateneo Graduate School of Business, or Ateneo Continuing Education. We do corporate finance, we do project financing, we do mergers and acquisition. I handle that particular subject, because when you're doing an SPV concept or a turnkey or a concept where you're doing a joint venture, you must know how to do the mergers and acquisitions as well. So with that, I turn it back to you, Sui. Thank you.
Thank you, Ida. I must say, level up talaga ang iyong presentation skills. Na-challenge kaming lahat. Very well done on the how everything was well presented. Alam mo, and also I like how you listed down basic things, so like the risks are all there, no, na people can look out for, na watch out for. I counted, I think, about 10 risks there. I love how you mentioned that 92% of success lies in the implementation. 84% of projects fail, no, because kulang sa feasibility, preparations, and planning. So very, very well said, and very well encapsulated. Although we do have very little time to discuss all of that, but of course we've got more time a little later, no. And thank you also for linking it through so far to the presentations of ASEC Ellie and Attorney Al. So let me just let's move on. Alam mo, we have 493 people in Zoom, no, in attendance. I think there are about 50 plus in Facebook. So again, I'd like to thank everybody for joining us this afternoon. So thank you, Ida. Our next speaker, we are honored to have on video, actually, si Governor Dakila Kua. No? So presently, Governor Dax wears 3 distinguished hats. No? He is, number 1, the Provincial Governor of Quirino, and number 2, the National Chairman of the League of Provinces of the Philippines, the LPP, and number 3, the National President of the Union of Local Authorities of the Philippines, or yung ULAP. So Governor Dax has served for 9 years as Congressman, 6 years as Vice Governor, and 3 years as Governor. Exemplifying broad experiences in both the executive and legislative functions. In Congress, he served as chairman of the House Committees on Ecology and Ways and Means, as well as senior vice chairperson of the House Committees on Appropriations, Economic Affairs, and Constitutional Amendments. He also served as a member of the Majority on Energy, Information and Communications Technology, among others. Throughout his career, Governor Dax has been focused on improving the quality of life of Filipinos. He prioritizes health, and education to allow Filipinos to participate in economic activities, infrastructure to move goods and services, and agriculture and livelihood to increase household incomes. Due to his exemplary contributions, he received various awards and achievements such as the Gawad KKK Outstanding Youth of the Philippines Award, Most Outstanding Vice Governor of the Philippines Award, amongst others. To give us an overview of the Executive Order 138 and the impact on the provinces, let's welcome on video Governor Dax Kua.
Magandang hapon po sa ating lahat. The pursuit of local autonomy as enshrined in the 1987 Philippine Constitution under Article 2, Section 25 thereof, envisioned to lead to the full development of the local government units into self-reliant, resilient communities and potent, effective development partners in nation building. Corollary to this, the Philippine Constitution guarantees that the local government units will enjoy a just share in the national revenue to support their annual operations. But for the past 30 years, following the enactment of the Code, which fleshed out the principle of local autonomy, LGUs in general have been in fact struggling to fund the delivery of basic services and programs at a level that meets the standards to the satisfaction of our constituencies. Honestly speaking, the 40% share of national internal revenue taxes that LGUs receive annually could hardly cover the mandated provision of quality, full, sustainable delivery of basic public services for most localities. Hence, many of local functions stipulated under Section 17 of the Local Government Code could not be met by LGUs on their own and had to be assumed or supported by national government agencies and GOCCs. Thus, LGUs have been anticipating as welcome relief the implementation of the landmark Supreme Court ruling on the petitions filed way back in 2012 by Batangas Governor Mandanas and Bataan Governor Garcia. The judicial fiat, as we know it by now, came about 7 years later and declared as unconstitutional the local code's use of the term National Internal Revenue Taxes as the narrow basis in computing LGU share. Thus, to correct the injustice and to give rightful just share to LGUs, the national government agencies concerned, DOF, DBM, BIR, and Bureau of Customs, were directed to include in the computation of LGU share all other revenue sources not previously factored in. But the implementation has to be prospectively. Otherwise, for the 20-year period alone, starting in 1992 when the LGC took effect until 2012, when the petition was filed, the petitioners claimed that the national government would have owed LGUs around 500 billion in differential. To cushion the fiscal impact of the Supreme Court decision on the national government, the national government deemed it imperative to remove LGU assigned expenditure items in the national plate and move them to where the funds will be allocated. For example, the local government. Thus, EO 138 was issued on the 1st of June 2021, directing the full devolution to local governments of all nationally funded local functions, programs, and projects that, to this date, are being performed by national government agencies and GOCCs. And in the spirit of bayanihan and given a whole-of-government approach, ULAP throws its support behind the administration's move towards full devolution vis-a-vis this Supreme Court decision in the context of pursuing meaningful local autonomy. Nonetheless, we take this opportunity to express some concerns that may come in the way of smooth implementation and thus need some urgent resolve from parties concerned. For example, first, the exercise and retention of local government functions by the national government to date was born out of the less than ideal implementation of the local code over 30 years ago. Studies show, however, that the cost of the newly devolved functions is worth more than the amount that the LGUs stand to receive pursuant to the Supreme Court ruling. it has been estimated that the total cost of the devolved functions is somewhere around 500 to 1.3 trillion pesos. So sorry, that's 500 billion to 1.3 trillion pesos, or an overwhelming budgetary gap of close to 1 trillion pesos. Second, DBM National Budget Memorandum 138 enjoins national government agencies from further allocating funds to devolved local projects starting 2022. This is alarming in view of the fact that fiscal year 2022 National Expenditure Program is 5.024 trillion pesos, or 500 billion higher than the previous year's budget. Certainly, there's enough fiscal space in 2022 to accommodate continuing funding support for key local projects or even the NGAs to sustain the implementation of some of the contemplated devolved functions. For example, health facilities enhancement or school building programs or communal irrigation systems. Third, LGUs will have to be capacitated double time to do the heavy lifting this time around. In terms of the crafting of the devolution transition plans, LGUs are given up to the end of December to comply, while NGAs are given until 2024 to do theirs. Without the DTPs of NGAs, LGUs cannot be guided in the absence of service delivery standards as regards the expected cost, scope, and quality of delivering newly assigned functions. Fourth, in terms of capacity development needed by LGUs, it has been pointed out that LGUs are not created equal, have different contexts such as vulnerability, resources, technical capacity, manpower, and so on. Therefore, there is an urgent need for LGUs to be consulted on the kind of training that they should be given to address existing deficiencies and empower them to perform certain deliverable services. LGUs say no to one-size-fits-all capacity building programs. Fifth, the Growth Equity Fund is contemplated as a lump sum fund to address development disparity across local government units. But while this concept still has to be drafted and submitted to Congress for legislative consideration, this early LGUs are objecting to the initial definition of the beneficiaries of the fund. Aside from LGUs with high incidence of poverty, era-dependent LGUs is proposed to be included in the coverage of the GEF, subject to performance standards over a reasonable period of time. For example, may it be performance-based and time-bound. The apprehension among LGUs is exacerbated by the realization that the LGU share of national revenue will decline after 2022 due to less than ideal revenue collection performance in 2020 and possibly in 2021 because of the COVID-19 pandemic. As LGUs face the challenge of full devolution, we recognize the strategic relevance of participation of the CSOs towards the promotion of good governance, especially during the phased implementation of full devolution. As in the past, CSOs can assist LGUs in the following: in formulation of plans, policies, and issuances, pushing for various advocacies and initiatives, providing feedback on programs, activities, and projects of the local government, and implementing capacity development programs and other activities. Starting with the formulation of the Devolution Transition Plan, CSOs as members of the Local Development Council can certainly enrich the development perspective by wearing the non-government lens and ensuring inclusivity of target outcomes and implementation tools. Moreover, CSOs can serve as an objective third-party monitor, exercising oversight function over the implementation of the projects. And quite importantly, CSOs can serve as the good governance advocates and can document the kwento ng kwenta to ensure transparency in budget execution and accountability for every centavo allocated according to the approved budget. Indeed, we are in the process of change. This is not only devolution but also evolution. So, the major challenge now, moving forward, is promoting further and better national-local coordination and efficient resource management. It should be given emphasis that the LGUs have always been supportive of the government in our common pursuit of sustainable development. However, we will still be needing the robust support of the national government, especially through funding and throughout this transition. In all that have been said, ULAP will consciously aim to be the voice of LGUs for the sake of sustained development and good governance. Again, salamat po for inviting ULAP to be part of this activity at mabuhay po tayong lahat.
Thank you. And let's acknowledge that video from Governor Dax, and it's good that he gave us a real background on the executive order and also the scale of the change that's going to happen. And the good thing I think about that, it also echoes a lot of the things that previously mentioned, like capacity development, having service quality standards out there to prepare for the transition. So again, maraming salamat to Governor Dax and also to his staff who are I think joining us today. So let us move on to our next and final speaker. This person is not new to our Livable Cities Lab. In fact, we've had him in a few of our sessions already. Our next speaker is Mayor Avelino Bing Leonardia of Bacolod City. So Mayor Bing was awarded the Man of the Year at the Asia Leaders Awards 2019 and represented the Philippines at the World Summit of Local and Regional Leaders in Durban, South Africa in November of 2019. He is the National President of the League of Cities of the Philippines, our partner in this webinar series. From 2019 to 2022, LCP is the formal organization of city mayors of the 146 cities nationwide and the longest serving mayor of Bacolod, and now on his sixth term. So allow me to welcome back to the Livable Cities Lab, Mayor Bing. Mayor Bing, kumusta na kayo?
Appreciate, thank you.
Good to see you again. Mm-hmm.
Thank you for emphasizing that I'm not new here.
Well, thank you for your support all this time.
Maybe what you're trying to say is I'm old.
I know, you're just a great supporter.
Right. We have participated in some of the Livable Cities activities because in the LCP we were cultured to respond that the wish of Bill Luz is our command.
Maraming salamat, sir.
Yes, may I just greet Chairman Al, Director Eli, CEO Ida, and of course Governor Dax. I just want to say that it is an honor to be in your league. And I understand that we're running out of time, and just in case it had to be done, it has to be done. Susie, you can knock at my door, and if I have to stop, I can stop. So this is our position. The League of Cities of the Philippines commits our strong support to the full devolution of powers to LGUs in 2022 due to the Mandanas Ruling. We envision that the meaningful and transformative devolution of responsibilities and funding will invigorate our country's development. Capacity building is not a one-time thing, as it requires series of trainings and seminars. With this, we cannot expect all cities to immediately assume additional responsibilities for devolved functions when the Mandanas ruling comes into effect in 2022. The initial step to improve cities' capabilities is to acknowledge that cities are not created equal. Hence, cities require valid capacity building to deliver improved services to our people. The next step is to assess the areas that need improvement, craft customized approach to address these areas, and cultivate a strategy to guide the city for the service execution. Finally, have a comprehensive and sustainable capacity development program, sort of a black book. Even if there will be a change of leadership in the 2022 elections, the locality will have the necessary tools and information to refer to and ensure a smooth transition to the additional devolved functions. Delegated roles must be considered alongside the size of the local government, personnel composition, and competencies, assigning functions that local capacities cannot meet, whether due to inadequate personnel to handle concerns or the need for specific responsibilities may fail LGUs to deliver adequate services. This will affect both the efficiency and devolution of in promoting the welfare of residents and the improvement of local services. LGUs cannot assume full devolution of certain functions overnight. Cities will achieve meaningful devolution with sufficient knowledge, skills, and resources on local development, planning, revenue generation, and financial management. However, the common ground for all cities will revolve around empowering the people, improving healthcare services, strengthening the delivery of basic and higher education, and improved environment preservation. The Mandanas Garcia ruling affirms the rightful share of the LGUs as guaranteed by the Constitution. With this, cities will once again have the momentum to improve the delivery of basic services, improve local revenue generation, and prioritize infrastructure to support job creation, tourism development, and housing projects. The expected growth in the national tax allocation will also enable the cities to improve health services as a continuing response to curb further transmissions of COVID-19. Vaccine rollouts and improved healthcare facilities shall remain priorities in all cities. The Mandanas Garcia ruling provides for growth in fiscal autonomy and responsibilities. The full devolution of certain functions will require additional resources for cities to effectively perform their duties. The principle of finance follows function is a core idea in decentralization and in line with the fact that functional assignments should be supported with adequate fiscal resources. Thus, the cities are expected to deliver a higher level of accountability through the projects they will implement and provide a comprehensive report of the delivery of these services. Section 9 of EO 138 encourages the cooperation of NGAs and LGUs as it mandates the local government academy to oversee capacity development interventions and develop mechanisms for efficient utilization of resources. They can enhance transparency with the LGA at the helm. Further, local governance resource centers can serve as a convergence platform for capacity development. On the other hand, the seal of good local governance can facilitate the institutionalization of performance standards and develop performance mechanisms. This will institutionalize transparency and accountability in city operations. LGUs are generally free to allocate their NTA to whichever purpose they deem fit, except for certain mandated budget allocations. With this huge responsibility given to LGUs, each city must strengthen its local public financial management, finance new programs, and expand existing services. To ensure well-meaning local government units under a full devolution, we need to give each other time. We know now we did not know 20 years ago. We can adjust quicker though. We are more resilient as a people. Our institutions have matured over time. This is the best time for full devolution. You have former local officials at the Senate, at the House, in Cabinet, and our chief executive is a former mayor. The Mandanas Garcia victory is a big boost to LGUs to fulfill their mandates under the code. If the IRA were to contribute to the achievement of national goals, NGAs should strengthen and empower LGUs by providing them with development parameters or indicators for the effective and efficient implementation of basic public services. Performance indicators will have to be downloaded to the LGU as a basis for monitoring and evaluation. Capacity building, technical assistance, and technology transfer on project development, implementation, and monitoring and evaluation are imperative. And now more than ever, technocrats and political leaders must break away from this traditional mindset of siloed thinking. The provision for service standards and guidelines formulated by the NGAs should serve to empower LGUs, establish clarity by delineating functions from the NGAs, and provide accountability to eliminate abuses. Ladies and gentlemen, that is the position of the League of Cities of the Philippines. Madamo na salamat and good afternoon.
Thank you, Mayor Bing. Thank you for that, and it's a great summary of the position of the LGUs now, of the League of Cities. I like how you mentioned that it recognizes that it needs time, it needs to break down silos, it needs a lot of preparation, especially in sa capacity development part, no. But it's also a big opportunity for, it's a big victory by itself, and it's also an enabler to develop and deliver services and development for the cities and its constituents. So thank you, Mayor Bing. Good. We're gonna flow into our panel discussion. Please stay there, Mayor Bing. We'll get everybody else back on the panel. So let's get everybody back into the panel. And then let's get everybody on screen. Maybe we can start off by getting a picture, no? Can we do that direct? Can we do a picture muna of our panelists today?
Can you screenshot that?
Yes. Okay. Veron, turn on your camera.
Oh, turn on your camera, please. Ayan, we'll ask our
si Veron.
Office to take our picture. So look at your camera and pause for a while and give us a smile. Okay, ready? 1, 2, and smile. That should be fine. Thank you very much, everybody. And welcome to our panel discussion. Alam nyo, we have so many questions. We still have about 470. Kanina, I counted 498 in participants in Zoom, about 50 plus, almost 60 people in Facebook Live. So thanks, everyone, for staying with us and learning from our panelists today. We have about quite a number of questions in the chat in the Q&A chat box. We also have Ambassador Peter. Hello, sir. Good to see you in our session. How are you today?
Very well, thank you. Thank you for allowing me to join at late notice. Salamat po.
Salamat din. Thank you very much.
Good evening, sir.
Good. We're gonna kick off with some questions. While the folks are on screen now, I think we have some of our friends from media who are joining us. Baka you could like to raise your hand and ask a question. We can take you in now. Okay, Jonathan, is that you? Did you raise your hand? Oh, I lost Jonathan. Can you do that again?
He's on mute. Jonathan, you're on mute.
Oh, nakamute ka yata. Can you unmute yourself, Jonathan? And introduce yourself na rin. please.
Hi, sir. I'm Jonathan Mayuga of the Business Mirror. I'm just curious. We've been preparing for this devolution for a long time. Is there an actual study on the capacities of LGUs in public finance, and are we really ready? How many of the LGUs are capacitated or capable of handling their own funds? And how many of the LGUs in one period have been red flagged by the COA, because it will help us determine if they are really ready for LGUs, and the funds will be accounted for, because of we really don't know right now, because even in the national government, we can see that the state auditors are issuing red flags for every NGAs. So how can we be sure that the funds will be intact in the case of LGUs?
Okay, that's a good question from Jonathan. No? How ready are the LGUs for this transition? And well, considering that background, no, that Jonathan mentioned, is there somebody perhaps who has experience in this? Maybe Mayor Bing, or si Attorney Al, or si ASEC Ellie? Would you know how to answer or answer that question? Mayor Bing? Yes, sir.
Well, I thank you, Jonathan, for that incisive question. A question we all should ponder upon, because the way we are seeing things, in spite of all these preparations for this national transition program, unfortunately, we have not gotten a directive or an order telling us all to do these capability building programs. I hope to see that maybe the DILG or other authorities will come up with a uniform capability, capacity program, so that we will have, as you said, a uniform way of looking at all this, particularly because we also have, in the middle of all this, we'll have to deal with COA. Now, may I say that as a matter of information, as we have been discussing this at our level, that while we, as early as last year, we organized our devolution transition committee, we still have to depend on the, presentation or the advice of the NGAs. And so far, like, we're dealing with our regional level here, and we do not have any so far. Maybe they're thinking in terms of the 3-year period, the 3-year transition period, and maybe it looks like they're not in a hurry because they have 2 more years to go or something like that, or 3 years to go. Mm-hmm. So I think that is how it looks from our level, and maybe Professor Chairman Al can give us the academics and the other realities here.
Mm-hmm. How about that, Attorney Al? Maybe you can chime in on that, your perspective.
Yeah, thank you, Mayor Bing, for saying that my perspective will be academic. No? So
right,
again,
right.
A fair reading of the Mandanas ruling actually does not provide for any transition period. So it should be effective immediately. So again, this is academic. Number 2, I don't think we need, it doesn't premise the enforcement of this ruling based on the readiness of the local government units. So whether the local governments are ready or not ready, the ruling must be implemented. So again, with or without EO 138, with or without the readiness, but of course, again, this is academic, the ruling must be applied. And again, 34 years or 30 years, the LGUs have been deprived. The longer the delay in the release will further deprive them of what is due them under the Constitution. good thing for the national government. It is prospective. There's no windfall. But earlier, as mentioned by Governor Dax, the funding for next year will not even cover the devolved mandates under the local government code and other statutes. So in short, kulang pa nga yata yung dapat entitled ang local government unit. So again, that's academic. Thank you.
Thank you. I also see yes, Mayor Bing.
I just add that insofar as the funding is concerned, it looks like we will have the full implementation by 2022 because the League of Cities together with the ULAP and the League of Provinces had lobbied on this many times over, but we did not. We would have wanted this to have been implemented even as soon as the Mandanas ruling was penned by the Supreme Court, but it didn't happen. So funding-wise, at least we will get them now. Our budgets have been correspondingly adjusted. We have an average of 38% increase in our budget, and that is whether there's devolution or not. We welcome that as long as the money is with us. The others, the nitty-gritty can follow.
So we one more statement.
Sige, Attorney Al, and then follow-up question lang ni Jonathan, and then we need to move to the next question.
Under the ruling.
May I chime in on that one?
Okay, we'll do Al, Ida, and then last follow-up question kay Jonathan. Okay, go ahead, Al.
And again, under the ruling, it says you don't even have to put it in the budget. It says it must be like the foreign debt. You don't have to put it in the budget. It must be released to the local government units. So again, sorry, that's my last point on this matter. Thank you.
Good point. Ida, would you like to add to that?
Yeah, I'm kind of hearing in one corner we're saying we got to delay this, but I believe in analysis paralysis as well. But on the left side, we're saying, hey, we got to implement this. And typically, when it comes to big projects, and this is being done by Bangko Sentral as well, being done by SEC, where you do a sandbox. It's a pilot test. So it's a test and learn. So whether this recommendation or a comment to this, and again, academic, we should also do pilot testing. So we could have to find out, not necessarily on the preparedness, but how the kinks, we can solve some of the problems and not so much as making sure everyone's ready, because they will never be ready, like not absolutely everyone. But at the same time, if we just dump it, that's going to be difficult. So there's going to be a middle ground to this.
Good point. And I like the thought of the idea of having a sandbox environment to try that out. That's a good point, Ida. Jonathan, last follow-up question, and then we need to move to the other questions from the others. Go ahead.
Thank you, sir. I'm more curious about will there be a sort of local economic development guides coming from the national government, since the budget will be boosted by this Mandanas this ruling by the Supreme Court. So they have now the power and they have now the capacity in terms of finance.
Right.
Finance. So will there be a guideline or a guide coming from the NGAs or the DILG perhaps?
Let me ask that maybe academically, Attorney Al, and maybe on partnership-wise, ASEC Ellie, no? He can chime in on this.
But I'm not familiar whether the national NGAs are actually coming out with a guide. I'm sorry.
Okay.
Pass.
Pass muna. How about you, Ellie? Would you know on that? And of course,
on the 2 points raised by Jonathan. First, Jonathan, on the question kanina about capacity building, unfortunately, wala tayong comprehensive assessment of capacity of all LGUs in the area of project finance. But I think that's precisely because financial management and the local government is really a big white animal. Kailangan himayin natin yung detalye ng capacity, learning and development requirements. Kasi some are more ready, some are not. But to be fair, there are LGUs already and have done real good innovations in that area. So I think that's the wisdom of the EO 138's directive for LGA to harmonize, consolidate this numerous capacity building programs available, but which I think is also in itself may wisdom din yung ganun na iba-iba and several options LGUs can approach and learn from, even the universities, etc. Yung pangalawang tanong mo, ano kalimutan yung
guidelines from
guidelines.
yeah.
I remember dun sa EO 138 nakalagay doon, Jonathan, that the RDCs, nether regional offices, will provide guidelines to the local governments in as they prepare local transition plan, ano yung priority economic development nasa MTPDP natin, nasa ating ano yun, yung 10-point agenda, sa ambition natin. So merong guidelines that the RDC, which is a platform for LGUs to get guidance and direction and prioritization that they can go to. So there's that. I suppose there's a need for more instructive guidelines and help, and I think that's should come out in the next step, hopefully.
And I don't think there's a shortage of templates and examples.
Exactly,
no,
precisely.
Yeah. Sa PPP pa lang, there's quite a number there, right?
Yes.
Okay.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much for this.
Salamat, Jonathan.
Learning by doing naman talaga, di ba, ang local dev eh. Learning by doing.
Yeah. Good point. Actually, while the Ambassador Peter Kell is here, maybe he has some impressions on this transition that we're going through, or his thoughts. Ambassador, are you all right to give us a few of your thoughts on this this transition we're going through?
Yeah, no, look, thank you very much. Really, I suppose the thought that was running through my head is that if I understand the discussion correctly, while the focus has been on the funding and the budget, if I understand the ruling correctly, of course, the responsibility for certain services also falls to the LGUs, which means straight away that there will be an expectation from the citizens. And I think, our experience has been that they will drive as well as the preparedness of an LGU to take on bigger services. There'll also be the expectations from the citizens that are looking for those services, and that will accelerate, I think, many of the cities' preparation, for this greater responsibility and funding. So I think you'll get, as we say, you get a push and a pull factor. And I suppose the last thing I would say is that certainly in the case of New Zealand, we've had a lot of devolution of responsibilities to local governments. I think we're also going through in New Zealand our own journey, and that is that we understand that, there is a need for regulation, better regulation, to develop a sense of what it means to be a regulator, particularly in some of the areas that I think you've been touching on today. And then lastly, the other really big learning, I think, from the New Zealand experience is that you kind of have to remember who you're doing this for. And so we've had a kind of a shift in the focus of government, particularly at local level, where they put the citizen in the middle of the government thinking about how to do government. And so I think there's an opportunity here with the Mandanas ruling to rethink why LGUs do what they do. And it's less about the how, it's more about the why. And I think a lot of what I've heard today is about the how, but I actually think the bigger question is, okay, so we now have this responsibility. Who are we trying to serve again? What are their needs? How do we know that their needs are not what we think they're their needs from 50 years ago? How do we validate that? How do we ensure there's a feedback loop? And then, as I think some of the speakers have said, Ida and others, that consultation, that project development phase, I actually think there's a really good opportunity here, but it's not easy. We know that from our experience.
Yeah,
it's not easy. So perhaps I'll leave it there. And
thank you
for the opportunity to comment.
Thank you, Ambassador Peter. That's really well said. No, really finding out our purpose, no, the purpose of all of these things, and that will drive the action. So well said, sir. There's another question here actually, and alam mo, again, we need to look also at the audience of our audience in these types of webinars. We have about a quarter or about a third are from the private sector. So I'd like to, in the spirit of how we work together, and before we close this webinar, we're already 1 minute past our time limit. I'd like to ask everybody, can you tell us, give us just a few points, one or 2 minutes. What is the role of the parties outside of the LGU, private sector, civil society? What can they do and how can they participate in this? So let's start, perhaps, let's start with Asek Eli, who's very well versed in public-private partnerships. Let's start with you, and we'll go around.
Well, these are the so-called non-state actors. Governance is state and non-state actors getting their acts together. One very important non-state actor, as I've been saying, is private sector, private business through PPP mechanisms. But there are other stakeholders, non-state stakeholders, the academe, civil society. They can and should participate in actual project planning, preparation, exacting accountability as LGUs pursue these projects and utilize these resources. There are platforms for that. For example, in PPPs, there's a monitoring process where LGUs should consult and dialogue with stakeholders, with the chambers of commerce, present their project, talk to the academe and the environmental groups and the NGOs advocating for the same services of that particular project, health, water, and sanitation. These are other non-state actors that I think should be enjoined in the process of the various phases of preparation, review and approvals, and actual implementation. Easier said than done, of course, but as I said, there are platforms, especially in the local governments, where this can be encouraged and actually operationalized.
Thank you, Asek Eli. Let's ask Ida what her thoughts on that, how we can work together. And then Attorney Al, and then Mayor Bing, of course, to close that off.
Thank you.
Go ahead, Ida.
Yeah, that's actually not that easy question to answer, Sui, but if I may, private sector, private sector, what can the private sector do in this and the implementation and so on? The bottom line is we want them to be successful. They must be successful. This is for our country. So if we can help in any way we can, private, public, whatever, and we can join hands here together with, as mentioned by Asek, there are private institutions that can help them in their capacity building. They should be able to get the best of the best in terms of who should they go to and helping them out there. And I'm also glad that we are having sessions like this. So thank you, Livable Cities, and we should continue having sessions like this. We gotta empower the LGUs and help them in whatever we can.
Well said, Ida. Thank you for that. Attorney Al?
Yes, 3 points. Number one, taking off from the points mentioned by the ambassador, the why for me as an academic, the why of local government units is clear. Because local governments, we call them double agents in a constructive way. They serve the interests of the state, and more importantly, they serve the interests of the people. That's founded in our constitution. Second, one of the essential components of local autonomy is democratization, increasing the venues by which local citizens, private sector can participate in governance. One of which is accountability. The other one would be public-private partnership. And third, before the Supreme Court is misquoted, the phrase national tax allotment is my phrase. There's no mention of NTA in the Supreme Court ruling. So before you misquote the Supreme Court, I will take.
I'll quote you on that. I'll quote you on that, Al.
It's using it already.
Yeah. Okay. So, bravo. Because in class I use that term,
NTA.
Because even before, prior to the ruling, there were theses on the matter. So then it was the discussion. Then was already NTA. So again, the Supreme Court made no mention of that term. Thank you, and for allowing me to be part of the friend of local government units. Thank you.
Thank you, Attorney Al. And then Mayor Bing, of course, you mentioned breaking down silos kanina. Maybe you can tell us more about the role of collaboration.
Even just for the fact that now I know who is the author of NTA.
DLG.
my day is made. So that is how far you've gone to. So you're really an authority, to Chairman Al. So thank you for being here with us today. And yes, well, if we're talking about the participation of the stakeholders, or more so the private sector, they're all now aware that the pie has become bigger, and we will assume that they will become more demanding, or they will become more expectant. So there is an institutionalized participation of the private sector in our, it is true to everybody, in our City Development Council. That is for one. And this way, for sure, they will be giving us more ideas and giving us more demands, and so on and so forth. And as well as the general public, for that matter, we subscribe to the principle of having a participative form, style of governance and management. So we believe that they will just come naturally. And as it is expanded to PPE, the PPPs and all the other sources of funding that we can have to generate more resources for the local governments, I think we need people like you to be, and we need somebody like Bindus to somehow put us all together and make a concerted effort to achieve all the goals of these, or the goals that we'll have to make, because as a result of the Mandanas Ruling, because I think in summary, what we have to say is to whoever much is given, much is expected. So we'll have to do it the right way with the help of experts like you. And with my idol, Chairman Al, I think he will lead us to the promised land.
Thank you, Mayor Bing. Galing. Alam mo, I apologize na we're quite a few minutes over schedule already, but I'd like to bring our panel discussion to a close. And heartfelt thanks to everybody, from the Livable Cities team, and the organizers and our partners. Maraming salamat for spending your afternoon with us. We'll move on to actually some closing remarks from none other than Veronica Hitosis. Si Veron has been working with the League of Cities since 2003. She is the first internal staff member to be appointed as the executive director of the Livable Cities Philippines. Prior to joining the league, executive director of the League of Cities of the Philippines. Prior to joining the league, she was a legal researcher at Bernardo Mirador Law Office, and she was a short-term expert for Partnership for Democratic Governance in Southeast Asia and a policy advisor to former Congressman Mel Senen Sarmiento. So to give us our some closing remarks, let's welcome si Veron. Hi, Veron.
May I say she's the pride of the LCP?
Of course.
Yes.
Of course. Go ahead, Veron. The stage is yours.
Yeah, thank you, Sir Suwin. Ako parang hindi ko na yata kayong itap yung mga experts, but I think I just want to highlight 5 major points from the discussions that just have been concluded, and also yung mga earlier inputs ni Ma'am Ida, ni Attorney Agra, at saka ni Sir Eli Ricote. So I think what I remember, so there is a potential to finance capital expenditures because the PPP framework is ready, is available, and well entrenched in with the PPP center. And also, sabi nga ni Attorney Agra, 34 years of our budget constraints could have been avoided had we put earlier for our share on the pie. And also, I want to highlight lang that the era or data, yung sinabi ni Governor Dax earlier, because it is computed 3 years prior. So liliit po yun sa 2023 and 2024. And then that's where more services are expected to be performed by local government units or cities in our case. So and then siguro yung sinabi lang, I just want to also highlight yung shinare ni Ambassador Kel about who is served at the end of the day. I think the reason why Bill and team and everyone here in this call is trying to improve the capacities of cities to deliver improved services is because we want to serve our constituencies better. And that's at the heart, I think, of a public service and good local governance. Na pinamana pa sa atin ni former Secretary of the Internal Local Government, Jessie Robredo. Tino at husay talaga, no? And then, so sabi ni Mayor Bing, ang aking big boss, it takes time. And I think inad lang ni Ambassador Kel, it takes time and it's not easy. But I think for as long as we have the correct, the dedicated people in the room, Bill, Attorney Agra, Mayor Bing, Sir Ellie, pati na ikaw, Sir Suwi, sama ka na, si Miss Ida, si Governor Dax, I think we are on the right track. So, sorry, commercial lang. Gusto ko lang mag-thank you sa mga cities nag-dial in. I saw Legazpi City, Davao, Batangas, Ozamis, Butuan, Antipolo, Himamaylan. Of course, Bacolod City team is complete. And also want to say thank you to Bill and team for a well-organized webinar. Congratulations. And to my big boss, ang puso ng League of Cities of the Philippines, Mayor Bing Leonardia, for articulating the views of cities succinctly and in a more endearing way. Yun yung kailangan ko pang matutunan kay Boss Bing. So thank you and good afternoon po sa lahat. Thank you, Bill. Thank you, Sir.
Thank you.
Nice to see you.
In closing, Swissy, altogether we are called the Bill Luz disciples.
No. I want to thank my good friend Mayor Bing. He's been such a great supporter together with Viron, the rest of the team at the League of Cities. Such great partners and supporters of the Livable Cities Challenge through all these years, and I really thank you for that, Mayor Bing. We go back a long way, always talking back and forth about city competitiveness, you know. And I know Mayor Bing, he watches his city ranking like a hawk because he wants to make sure he never drops. In fact, when he drops, he gives me a call, you know, just to make sure we calculated correctly. So this is what I like. I love competitive mayors because they really are always improving city services for their constituents. I want to thank also all our speakers, Al, Agra, Ellie, Ricote, and Ida Chongson, our moderator today, Sui Suarez. Thanks for joining us. Our audience, you've been great. Stayed the whole afternoon. Thanks for joining us. You know, Livable Cities, the labs, we've been running many of these, about 10 or 12 a year. Next week, we'd like to show you. Next week, we'll be featuring the circular economy. So for those of you into, you know, recycling, reusing, and remanufacturing products, this is for you. We've got a great set of speakers, all from the private sector, talk about how products are reused and recycled and remade. So we look forward to joining you there. A little later on in November, we're going to have one on renewable energy. And then also in November, we'll have one on public health and vaccination and herd immunity. So our year is not yet over. We've got a lot of things going, and we look forward to having all of you here. But on behalf of Livable Cities Challenge, my thanks to everybody for joining us today, especially, again, my good friend, Mayor Bing Leonardia. Maraming salamat.
Thank you, Sir Bill.
Thank you. Mayor Bing, I'd like to introduce Ambassador Peter Kell of New Zealand to you. Peter has been here a few years, and Peter, Mayor Bing, as Mayor of Bacolod, has been the president of the LCP for a few years now, actually. And but he's got plenty of experience as a congressman and as a mayor.
Okay.
Yes,
Inagagalag ko kayong makilala, Mayor.
Yeah, Ambassador, you know, I think it's about time that you come to Bacolod. You know, recently
actually, Mayor, if I can share with you, I have an 18-year-old son who wants to go to Bacolod. He's been telling me he wants to go there right now.
Ambassador,
yes.
My daughter is with me, and together with my wife.